Okay, so we're going to go ahead and demonstrate some inking techniques, and I'm actually bringing Diana in to show you since I have almost no experience with inking, and I don't want to pretend like I have any experience inking, but as you can see in the trailer and in the product photos, she did a really great job on the inking. So we're going to go ahead and demonstrate some of the inking techniques that she used, and we're going to begin by inking the trumpet portion of the daffodil. So Diana, if you want to go ahead and just kind of show them what you did. And so as you can see, we've got kind of putting it on just a scrap piece of paper, or in my case, it was like an actual full piece of paper that I just grabbed because I didn't have a scrap in the studio. But so you always want to have that on your table so that you don't mess anything up. And as you can see on the tips of the trumpet, she kind of starts with a more pressure, and then as she works her way in, it kind of lets up a little bit. So it's almost like just like a little motion where you kind of start off strong and then end a little bit lighter. So it's almost like creating a gradient sort of effect. And then it looks like she's kind of doing the same thing on the bottom. And sort of leaving a nice, leaving the middle part somewhat untouched. So of course you always want to make sure that, well, in this case you're inking both the inside and the outside, because when you close it up you're going to see both. So definitely take your time and ink both sides. So now that we've done the trumpet, we're going to move on to the actual petal of the daffodil. And as you can see, each one has two sets of petals. We're only going to show you how to ink one of them, obviously, because you're going to repeat the same process for the second one. So go ahead and just show them how you inked the ones in our photos and videos, Diana. So it's basically the same technique, except you're starting from the inside, working your way out, instead of from the outside, working your way in. So I don't really think you can really mess this up too bad, but we definitely wanted to just take a little time to show you how we did it. And really the objective is to kind of try to create almost like a soft gradient where, you know, you've got a nice defined color in the middle, and then as you work your way out, it kind of just blends into the original color of the cardstock, so it seems very seamless. And let's show them what you do there. So you're just kind of dabbing it on the ink pad a little bit and then running it across the edge there. There you go. So now the stamen pieces in the middle of the flower, again, I'm assuming it's probably the same technique, right?
Correct.
Okay. And where you're starting from the
bottom.
From the bottom up, okay. So there you go. It's pretty simple, and it looks like the inks that we've been using, it was kind of a combination of Memento and Versa Magic and Versa Color, and those are, yeah, I guess that's what they're called, made by Dewdrop. So the stamen piece you're going to ink on both sides. It looks like on the daffodil petals, we only inked one side because we're not really going to see the bottom of them, so you don't want to waste ink on that. And then aside from the petals, the trumpet, and the stamen pieces, we also have some leaves, right? Mm-hmm. We've got a bunch of different leaves in the Daffodilly spring bundle, but the process is pretty much the same regardless of the size. So if you want to show them just a couple of the leaves and how you ink those. So we'll grab that piece. That is part of the daffodil. That's one of the smaller ones, but like I said, big or small, the process is pretty much the same. So as far as the little leaves, again, it's pretty much the same process. We're just trying to kind of create just a nice even gradient, a little bit darker on one end, and it kind of blends out into the color of the cardstock. So it looks like, yeah, it looks good. There you go. So that's what that one looks like when it's nice and inked. And again, you guys may have your own methods of inking, and this is probably more for those of you that have never inked. But And actually, Ron had a great idea. One of our friends sent me an e-brush. It might be kind of cool to actually airbrush some of these. But now, so for this leaf, you used a Q-tip because you really wanted to kind of focus where the inks went, and that's not really possible with that size of ink pad. So that's kind of what you want that leaf to look like. You just want to kind of add a little bit of interest to it so it's not just one solid color. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. When you start to begin to assemble the daffodil, you'll notice that there are some score lines towards the tip. And really the point of that is just to kind of help make the folding and the creasing a little bit easier, just to kind of bring them to life so they're not so flat. So you don't want to bend them too much, but just a little bit so they kind of, you know, get some life in them. And then kind of bend them in a little bit as well. So we take the trumpet, and we've got a little Sizzix pick tool. You could probably use a pencil or pretty much anything round to kind of help shape the trumpet, to train it, to get it into its ultimate final position. So just make sure that you get it nice and round. And then there's a little tab on the side there that you're going to fold over. And we're going to place a little bit of glue on that and just glue it to the inside of the other side of the trumpet. And just make sure that you get that nice and aligned. Now remember, this is nature, and nature isn't always geometrically perfect, so even if you mess up a little bit, just know that it's forgiving. It'll still look really good, especially if you've taken the time to ink some of the things. So make sure you hold that until it gets a good hold. It's nice and dry. And then one other thing that if we don't do, Ron will probably kill me, and that is taking the tips of the trumpet and curling those out, because they typically do curl out. So again, we're going to use our Sizzix little poker tool just to kind of train that paper out. And you know, when you're doing that, try to vary it a little bit so not all of them are poking out the same way. So give one more of a fold, one less of a fold. I think the more random, the more realistic. We can go ahead and take that, and there's also 4 tabs at the bottom of the trumpet. We're going to fold those in. Okay, and then you can hot glue if you want. It's not necessary. It may be easier because with hot glue, with this piece, you do kind of need to hold it in place for a little bit. But we are going to take that and glue that to the center of our yellow petal. So we're going to just pop some glue on the bottom of that guy. And sometimes less is more. And just center that as best as you can. And what Diana's found is just taking a Sharpie or a marker or something with a nice flat bottom and pushing and holding that down, and just leaving that in place until it gets gets good and dry is probably the best method. Okay, so once you have the trumpet glued, and as you can see, we kind of went a little heavy on the glue, but it is going to dry clear, so it's not a big deal. So with the stamen, what you're going to do is you're going to take you know, something thin and sturdy, like our little tool there is just a little pick tool that we got from Sizzix. Came in a little bundle for, you know, weeding and picking paper off and poking paper out. And so you're just going to wrap it around. It doesn't have to be too tight, right? Just tight enough to where it's kind of all together. So once you kind of have it semi-rolled up, you're really just doing that to train it initially. And then you can kind of roll it in your fingers there. And then you're going to need to put a little dab of glue on one end there, that little end cap, and just kind of glue it to itself so that it forms a cylinder with a little stamen kind of popping out. So, okay, so once you have the stamen glued to itself, you're going to go ahead and just kind of glue it into place inside the trumpet. So what we usually do is we just take and line the bottom of the stamen piece with a nice kind of thick layer of glue, just so that we get enough in there, and you just kind of drop it in there and hold it in place. And as long as it's making enough contact with the bottom of that, and you just leave it sit for long enough, it will get a hold. And actually, when it's together all tightly like that, you can actually apply pressure to it to kind of help force it into place. And again, just be patient and let it sit in there until you know that it's got a good hold. So the stamen are in there. Just make sure that you give them enough time to get a good hold. And when they are nice and attached, you can take your pick tool and kind of flare out the stamen pieces to make them look a little more random. But aside from that, at this point, what you're ready to do is glue that entire piece to the other petal. And we're not actually going to do that, but we'll just show you real quick. You just put some glue in between the two pieces and just offset them to create that look right there. And in our shot, we do have a little bit of glue that hasn't dried, which is why you see the white. So be careful and make sure that you don't over glue it. But that is the basic assembly of our tulip. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and show you how we inked the daisies from our Daffodilly Spring SVG bundle. Now, the hats and the basket, they all contain daisies. They are various sizes, but the process is basically the same. So we're just going to grab our inks, and just like we did with the tulip, we're just going to kind of start in the center and apply a little more pressure on the inside, and then as you work your way out, just kind of lighten up a little bit, and it's pretty straightforward. There's really not much to it. And then once you've got it inked, you can take your little poker tool or whatever you may be using, a hibachi skewer or whatever, and you're just going to kind of train each of the petals to kind of flare them out. And again, the idea is to make it as random as possible. You don't want to flare each one out identically, because again, in nature, you'll notice that there's a lot of randomness. Okay, so for the little center part of the daisy, Diana just kind of inked the little edges there, just to kind of add a little contrast to the edge. So there's no real inking in the center, and it's just kind of just to give it a little bit of interest and make it pop a little bit more, give it some dimension. So once you've got that piece inked, that middle piece is going to get glued to the smaller of the two petal pieces of the daisy. So you can either glue that down, or you can probably even pop dot it if you want to. I think in our case, we just glued everything down. But as far as the petals go, you could definitely pop dot the petals together if you want, just to kind of give them more dimension that way. And so once you have that piece glued together, just glue it down to the other part of the daisy, and you of course want to offset that a little bit as well. So as far as the gluing goes, you can just you want to take it and glue it to the larger daisy, and just offset it a little bit so that the petals are kind of offset, so they're not right on top of each other. Okay, so next we're going to show you how to assemble just the little cute flower that you see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That flower is featured on the brim of our skimmer hat, as well as the basket. There's 3 of them on the basket. And again, the inking process is pretty much the same. It looks like we're going to just take some inks and start from the center, get a darker element in the center, and just kind of create a gradient look that kind of pushes out to the actual petals themselves. And that's pretty much it. It's just a very simple inking technique. And in the case of the hat that we assembled, we actually used a little sticky pearl for the center of the flower, but we did include just a little yellow or whatever color you decide to make yours, little circle that you can adhere to the center of the flower. You can either just glue that right on, or you can pop dot it, or whatever you want to do. And then of course, we also took our little Sizzix tool and flared the leaves out just to kind of give them some additional dimension. So as you can see, just kind of taking the tips of the flowers and just kind of training them and kind of bending them to give them a little bit of dimension, and it just kind of makes them come alive. So finally, we're going to go ahead and show you what we did with our pussy willow. And the pussy willow comes with the actual branch, which has kind of the silhouettes of the little fuzzy things that are on the tips of the branches. And we didn't actually do anything to the branch portion of it. We just took the little white pieces and just really gently, added some inks towards the bottoms and created a gradient look. So we're gonna go ahead and use a desert sand color. And again, all we're doing is we're starting at the bottoms of the little fuzzy cottony things, and just very gently kind of creating a little gradient look, just to kind of make it a little more interesting, so it's not just one color. So you're going to repeat that process for all of the little white pieces, and then once you have those all on there, there's really no right or wrong place to put them. You just kind of find where you think they fit and just glue them right onto the little branch. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.